What is going on, everyone? Happy Monday. Unfortunately, today we are saying goodbye to the 2023 Houston Texans season. And what a season it was, man. It feels damn good to be a Houston Texan. I am proud to wear the red, white, and blue. If you would have told me all the way back in training camp when I lined up at 3 o'clock in the morning waiting to get in, and shout out to every Houston Texans fan that did, because you knew at that moment that this team was going to be special. But if you would have told me then that this Houston Texans team in year one of their rebuild would win 10 games, win the AFC South, win a playoff game at home, I would have looked at you silly and said, man, what are you smoking? Where can I get some? But the fact that this team did that, it is insane. They showed you that the future is as bright as can be for this franchise. What is also insane was at this point last year, we were without a head coach. And we had our GM, Nick Caserio, sit there in front of us and say, if I don't do a good job this season, I will be gone. It looked like the Houston Texans were going to go on a slippery slope and be a dysfunctional franchise. But flash forward to right now, it looks like the Houston Texans are on their way to being competitive. Not only did they find their head coach in D'Amico Ryans, but they found their franchise quarterback of the future who showed them that he could be the best in the league and he could get them to the postseason. Guys, I'm going to give you my biggest takeaways from the coaching staff, from the offense, from the defense. This was such a fantastic season. The content is going to keep on flowing. Welcome, everyone, to the 713 Houston Sportcast. I am your host, Ruben Calvillo. I drop daily Houston Texans content, so make sure you guys are following me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok for the latest news, rumors, and updates. And if you guys are new here to the channel, welcome. I'm trying to hit 10K subscribers by the end of this football season. Please help me get there. And thank you all so much for watching today's episode. Starting with the Houston Texans offense, my biggest takeaway is you found your future. The Houston Texans found their franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 12 years. CJ Stroud is that guy. He showed you in year one that not only is he the best rookie quarterback to ever play in the NFL, but he could also compete with the best of them. This year, you could honestly say that CJ Stroud was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, period. He should have Offensive Rookie of the Year locked up. And if he would have stayed healthy and not missed those 2 games against the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets, we might have been talking about an MVP season for CJ Stroud. And at one point, he was getting those conversations. CJ Stroud, what he did in year one was announce himself to the world. And that announcement was, I am going to be one of the next great young quarterbacks in the NFL. You talk about how humble he is, how much he is in love with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, man. Shout out to the man upstairs for allowing me the opportunity to talk Houston Texans football with you guys. Love you all so much. Hope you have a fantastic offseason, man. Just know we're going to be keeping it up here with the content. But CJ Stroud has changed the city of Houston and changed it for the good. The future is as bright as can be, and the main part is because of CJ Stroud at the quarterback position. His big games against the Indianapolis Colts, the game that was flexed from Sunday to Saturday night, 7:30, first play, 75-yard bomb, gets the Houston Texans into the playoffs. No one thought that was going to happen. And against the Cleveland Browns, the first rookie quarterback ever in his first playoff game to throw 3 tutties. He didn't even play in the fourth quarter. But CJ Stroud showed you how special he is. And as long as he stays healthy, this Houston Texans team is going to be winning football games and competing. I mentioned earlier that one of our key takeaways is that you see your future. Adding on to that, you have some game-changing wide receivers. Starting with Nico Collins. The season he had in year 3, you finally give him a quarterback that can get him the ball. You finally give him an offensive coordinator who could scheme him open. Nico Collins, almost a 1,300-yard season, 8+ touchdowns, a wide receiver 1 year 3 for him. Now, Nico Collins, I think he made a name for himself the last 2 weeks. A 195-yard performance against the Indianapolis Colts and a tutty. The first play, offensively, 75-yard bomb to him against the Cleveland Browns. 96 yards, a touchdown against an elite defense. Moved the chains for the Houston Texans. Got a tutty for them. Really balled out in the postseason for us. Nico Collins is in a contract year next year, and if he has another season with similar stats, you might have to give this guy the bag. Shout out to Nico Collins and the fantastic job he did this season. Earlier in the offseason, we were talking about what are you going to be? Are you going to be a locker room guy or just someone in the wide receiver room? Or are you going to be a star? And Nico Collins showed you he can be a star. Tank Dell, the other part of the future that everyone should be excited about. Maybe the biggest steal of the draft in the 3rd round, 47 catches, 709 yards, 7 touchdowns. Unfortunately, the last time we saw him was against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he got a broken/fractured fibula, ended his season. Tank Dell was special. And the story of how he got to Houston, texting them the night before on Instagram, don't let me leave, congratulating CJ Stroud, telling them, hey, have them come draft me. CJ Stroud, so okay, I got you. Tank Dell, a Houston Texan. And man, he has become another fan favorite here. We love Tank Dell. He showed with the ball in his hands that he can be electric. And we saw it all the way back in training camp. Tank Dell is another future young star on this Houston Texans team, and he is also going to be a big reason, if healthy, if he stays on the field healthy, is going to be a big reason why we win football games and why we are competing in the postseason. But those are my biggest takeaways from this Houston Texan offense. You got a franchise quarterback, and you got really 2 stud wide receivers and Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Now, of course, we're going to wrap up the entire offense in a couple of days, but these were my biggest takeaways. Switching to the Houston Texans swarming defense, my biggest takeaways is they have young stars as well. Christian Harris, I think, is going to be one of the best linebackers in the NFL this year. His play the last 2 months have been elite. Now, we knew whenever head coach DeMeco Ryans took control of this Houston Texans defense, we knew the position group that was going to benefit the most was the linebackers. We saw with Blake Cashman having his best season. I think he led the team in tackles also. Blake Cashman was balling out in the preseason, balling out in training camp. What was interesting about Christian Harris was that in the beginning part of this year, not saying he was bad, but it was inconsistent play from Christian Harris. But the last 2 months, this guy transformed. I mean, he was a force. You saw it in the Baltimore Ravens game, was all over the field, sacking Lamar Jackson, being great in coverage. Whenever there was positive plays against the run, it was because of number 48, Christian Harris. What he showed you this year is that this guy is coachable. The video last week of DeMeco Ryans explaining to him how to look for the interception, how to intercept Joe Flacco, where he needs to be, when he needs to get there. And for Christian Harris to just understand that and take that to the field and do it immediately, plays later, you get rewarded, you get the interception, you take it back to the house, you put the nail in the coffin in the Cleveland Browns. That shows that you are coachable and that you understand the game of football. And Christian Harris, with another offseason under DeMeco Ryans, entering year 3, you know he is going to be firing on all cylinders next year, man. Shout out to number 48, Christian Harris. Harris County, the nickname given to him by the OGs themselves, Soft Sports. Another star on the Houston Texans defense, Will Anderson Jr. Now, Will Anderson Jr. ended this year with some slander behind his name. A lot of people still think that the Houston Texans gave up too much to trade up to select him. And this year, what he gave you was a defensive rookie of the year campaign. Really turned it on towards the end of the season. At one point, he had 5 sacks in 4 games. And Will Anderson Jr., if he didn't go down with the ankle injury, missing a couple of weeks, how dangerous would he have been if healthy? Will Anderson Jr. dominant against the run, showed you he can get to the quarterback, and at points this season, Will Anderson Jr. looked like he was unguardable. And he is so young. We saw him all the way back in training camp. This dude looks like the Terminator. That's why he got the nickname. But he is a high motor guy, someone who at Alabama multiple seasons with 900 plus snaps, and this year was fantastic for you. And you see what he could potentially be, and that is a dominant edge rusher in the NFL. Expect him to have a monster year 2 under head coach DeMeco Ryans. Will Anderson this year was elite, and this is your defensive rookie of the year, ladies and gentlemen. Man, I wish he would have got 3 in the beginning and had Tank Dell keep that 13, but that's besides the point. But Will Anderson Jr. is a young star, ladies and gentlemen, in the NFL, and you have another 4 years with him. The growth is going to be crazy. I want to talk about Jalen Petrie right now, because Jalen Petrie had a horrible year too. And I think based on his performance, and I think he was benched in the playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens, this guy should be fighting for his position next year. Jalen Petrie, horrible in coverage, missed tackles, started the season strong, started the preseason strong, started week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens strong. Then I don't know what happened to him. But his fall off in year 2 needs to be studied. Very disappointed by Jalen Petrie's year 2. And with Jimmy Ward being inconsistent, being out, ending the season on IR, we only saw Jalen Petrie's faults highlighted even more. I think the Houston Texans need to go into the offseason with safety on something that they need to address. Overall, man, these were my biggest takeaways by the Houston Texans defense. Did a very solid job. There's more greatness yet to come for them.